Imagine a world where crime pays more than any honest job, where stolen treasures flood bustling markets, and where officials turn a blind eye for the right price. Pirates weren't just ruthless sea robbers, they were savvy businessmen, masters of a secret economy that stretched from hidden coves to major cities across the Atlantic. How did these outlaws turn stolen loot into cash, and why did so many colonies secretly welcome them? Pirates are often imagined as outlaws roaming the high seas, operating completely outside the law. However, the reality of piracy during its golden age was much more complex. In fact, many English colonies openly tolerated pirates, even though official policies strictly forbade piracy. This contradiction created a unique and sometimes confusing situation where piracy was illegal on paper, but frequently accepted and even encouraged in practice. One of the most famous examples of this was Port Royal, a bustling colonial port in Jamaica. Here, merchants openly bought stolen goods from pirates, often at steep discounts. These goods, ranging from Spanish silver coins to Dutch textiles, were then sold through legitimate channels. The town's officials were complicit in this trade, accepting generous bribes and turning a blind eye to the illegal activity. This created a bizarre scenario. While piracy was technically outlawed, it was practically endorsed by those in power who profited from it. Visitors to Port Royal described the markets as open-air bazaars where the goods being sold were clearly stolen. Spanish silver and Dutch fabrics were exchanged openly during the day. Yet, this wasn't limited to lawless pirate ports alone. Secret buyers and fence merchants operated in major coastal cities all across the Atlantic world, from Boston in the American colonies to Lisbon in Europe. These merchants specialized in purchasing stolen goods with little or no questions asked. They typically ran legitimate businesses, carefully concealing their pirate connections. For instance, in Charleston, a respectable shop owner might have a back room used after dark as a discreet place for pirates to sell their plunder. These buyers rarely paid full price. Typically, the pirates would receive only 20 to 30% of the actual market value of the goods. This significant discount was essentially the cost pirates paid for keeping their activities under wraps. Discretion was valuable, and many pirates accepted lower prices in exchange for a guaranteed buyer and avoiding law enforcement. Corrupt officials also played a key role in this underground economy. Harbor masters, customs agents, and even colonial governors were often bribed to allow pirate ships to dock and sell their stolen cargo. Some went beyond mere passive acceptance, actively helping pirates by forging paperwork to make stolen goods appear legitimate. Records from the 1720s reveal one colonial official who earned about 5 times his official government salary through his pirate partnerships. This level of corruption was common and helped sustain the pirate economy. Smuggling networks connected pirate ports to inland markets, further obscuring the origins of stolen goods. These networks were complex, involving multiple merchants who each took a cut while moving the goods farther away from their original illicit source. For example, a crate of spices might pass through 5 or 6 hands before reaching its final seller. By the time these spices reached a shop in London, no one remembered, or cared, that the cargo had once been aboard a pirate ship. This process effectively laundered stolen goods, making them indistinguishable from legitimately acquired merchandise. Some pirates played an even longer game. After a successful career of piracy, they would retire quietly by assuming new identities and becoming legitimate traders. Using their ill-gotten wealth, they established themselves as respectable merchants with new names and backstories. This was not an uncommon transition. The dangerous and often short-lived pirate life meant that many sought a safer, more stable retirement by entering legitimate business. Becoming a merchant was the 18th century equivalent of a secure retirement plan. The economic relationships between pirates and governments were also more complicated than they first appeared. During times of war, nations often found themselves desperate for supplies that their enemies had blockaded. In such cases, even governments publicly committed to fighting piracy might secretly purchase goods from pirates while publicly denouncing them. For example, during conflicts between England and Spain, English colonies sometimes bought supplies from pirates who were officially their enemies. In one recorded instance, a colonial governor signed a pirate's death warrant and bought stolen goods from him on the very same day. This duality shows how pragmatic concerns often outweighed legal or moral considerations. Pirates themselves did not always sell their loot. Some of the goods captured, such as food, alcohol, clothing, and weapons, were used directly to supply pirate crews. These essentials could keep a pirate ship operational for months. Luxury items like jewelry and fine clothing were shared among the crew as part of their earnings. Many pirates became known for their flamboyant style, wearing silk shirts and gold earrings that once belonged to wealthy merchants or aristocrats. Selling stolen cargo was a critical moment in a pirate's life. Unlike modern jobs with steady salaries and benefits, pirate compensation was irregular and often risky. Pirates had no health insurance, but they did develop a surprisingly democratic system for dividing their profits. Each crew member signed a contract called Articles of Agreement before joining the ship. This contract outlined exactly how loot would be shared and was often read aloud and signed by all, including those who couldn't write. Breaking these agreements could lead to punishments, ranging from losing part of one's share to being abandoned on a deserted island. The price that stolen goods fetched varied widely. Precious metals like gold and silver were worth close to their full market value since they could be melted down and were hard to trace. For example, a captured Spanish gold coin would be worth nearly the same as one obtained legally. During the golden age of piracy, one gold coin could equal about 16 Spanish dollars, enough to pay an average sailor's wages for 2 months. More common items, such as rum and sugar, sold for much less because they were easy to obtain and buyers took a greater risk. A barrel of rum worth 10 pounds in legitimate trade might only fetch 4 or 5 pounds on the black market. This discount was essentially the cost pirates paid to convert stolen goods into cash. The largest potential payoff came from stolen ships themselves. A well-built merchant vessel could be worth around 2,000 pounds, the equivalent of 20 years' wages for an average worker. However, selling a ship was complicated, so pirates often kept valuable ships for themselves and sold only the cargo. Once goods were turned into cash, the money was distributed according to shares outlined in the ship's articles. While systems varied, a typical breakdown might include the captain receiving 5 or 6 shares, significantly more than an ordinary crew member, but much less than the huge pay gap seen in legitimate shipping. This reflected the relatively democratic nature of pirate life, where captains were elected and could be replaced if the crew was unhappy. The quartermaster, who managed discipline and food distribution, typically received 2 shares. Specialists like the ship's doctor, carpenter, gunner, and navigator earned 1.5 to 2 shares, recognizing their important skills. Regular crew members got 1 share each, regardless of their specific duties. Even the lowest-ranking pirate earned far more than sailors on legitimate ships. For example, a merchant sailor might make 3 pounds a month, while a successful pirate could earn 10 times that from a single raid. Young boys serving as cabin boys or apprentices received half shares. Not a fortune, but still more than they could expect elsewhere. Injury compensation was also built into pirate contracts, establishing one of history's earliest forms of disability insurance. Losing a right arm might earn a pirate 600 pieces of 8, or the equivalent value in slaves. Other injuries, like losing a leg, eye, or finger, had set compensation amounts. This system meant injured pirates were not left destitute, a small comfort for those learning to tie knots with their teeth. Historical records give us remarkable insights into pirate earnings. When a pirate crew captured a richly laden merchant ship in 1695, each ordinary crew member received goods and coins worth the equivalent of 3 years' wages for a naval sailor. Another seizure of an East India Company ship in 1720 resulted in pirate shares worth over 1,000 pounds each, more than many sailors would earn in a lifetime. Yet not every venture was so profitable. Many pirate crews went months without a valuable capture or lost their loot to storms, naval patrols, or rival pirates. The nature of piracy was feast or famine. Despite the wealth pirates sometimes amassed, many lived in cycles of extreme riches followed by desperate poverty. Despite the potential for great wealth, life as a pirate was unpredictable and dangerous. Most pirates did not keep their fortunes for long. In fact, many went from riches to rags in a matter of months. Unlike the steady paycheck of a merchant sailor or naval officer, pirate earnings were irregular and often spent as quickly as they were earned. The saying, "money burns a hole in your pocket," could have been invented for pirates. Their approach to money management was straightforward: spend it fast. Pirates lived with constant uncertainty. The risk of being caught, injured, or killed meant saving for the future was rarely a priority. Financial planning was nearly impossible when your next meal or escape from capture was never guaranteed. One of the main places pirates spent their wealth was in taverns and drinking establishments. These venues were the social hubs of pirate communities and the local economy in pirate-friendly ports. For example, Port Royal, Jamaica was famous for its high concentration of bars, more than 70 in an area no bigger than 5 city blocks. That meant roughly 1 drinking establishment for every 30 residents. These taverns often had special arrangements with pirate crews. They would extend credit during times when pirates had no fresh loot, knowing they could collect their debts once the pirates returned with new plunder. Gambling was another favorite pastime for pirates and a major drain on their finances. Dice games, card games, and betting were widespread. Pirates would wager on everything from fights to contests of who could drink the most rum without passing out. This gambling culture consumed vast amounts of pirate silver and coins. Many pirates who survived battles, storms, and hangings would eventually lose their fortunes to nothing more dangerous than a pair of dice. It seemed calculating the odds of surviving cannon fire was easier for pirates than calculating the odds at the gambling table. Clothing might seem like an unusual priority in such a harsh and risky lifestyle, but pirates were known for being fashion conscious. After months or even years at sea wearing tattered and worn clothes, newly wealthy pirates often splurged on colorful silks, fine hats, and expensive boots. This wasn't just about vanity. Dressing well was a form of advertising success and status. Pirates wanted to show that they had made it, and their flamboyant style set them apart from ordinary sailors or common folk. Professional companionship was another significant expense. Records from places like Port Royal reveal that some women working in this profession became wealthy enough to buy property and run businesses. This was an unusual economic opportunity for women in the early 1700s, a time when women generally had few chances to own land or earn independent wealth. For pirates, relationships with these women were often an important part of their social and economic life ashore. While most pirates spent their money quickly, some took a different approach by investing. Though in the minority, a few pirates used their wealth to purchase land, ships, or small businesses. This gave them a chance to establish a more legitimate and stable source of income after their pirate days ended. Several former pirates went on to become plantation owners in the Caribbean or respectable merchants in colonial ports. This shift showed that not all pirates were reckless spenders. Some planned for the long term and successfully transitioned into legitimate society. Contrary to popular myth, pirates rarely buried their treasure. The idea of secret maps marked with an X to indicate hidden loot was mostly a creation of fiction and storytelling. In reality, pirates preferred to spend their wealth rather than hide it. Buried treasure was impractical. Why hide money when you could use it right away? This constant spending helped keep pirate economies lively and dynamic. Money changed hands quickly, fueling local markets and businesses in ports that catered to pirates. The rapid turnover of pirate wealth had a direct impact on the broader economy of the Atlantic world. Pirate spending created a continuous flow of stolen goods and coins back into circulation. This underground economy connected legitimate merchants, corrupt officials, and criminal enterprises in a complex network that stretched across continents. Taverns and gambling dens benefited enormously, as did merchants who specialized in selling luxury goods to pirates. By purchasing fine clothing, jewelry, and expensive food and drink, pirates supported a range of businesses that might otherwise have struggled. These spending patterns influenced the culture and economy of port towns, making them lively and sometimes chaotic centers of trade and social life. The spending habits of pirates also reinforced the cycle of corruption among colonial officials. Since pirates spent lavishly in ports, governors and customs officials had a financial incentive to tolerate piracy despite official laws against it. Bribes and kickbacks from pirates and their merchants became an expected part of colonial governance in many areas. This blurred the line between legality and egality, creating a gray zone where piracy was unofficially tolerated in exchange for economic benefits. The pirate economy's effect on legitimate trade was complicated. On one hand, pirates disrupted commerce by attacking merchant ships and stealing cargo. On the other hand, they provided a source of cheap goods and coins that helped fuel colonial markets. Stolen goods made their way into everyday trade networks, often laundered through multiple hands until their origins were forgotten or ignored. This system depended heavily on smuggling networks and secret buyers. Merchants in major coastal cities, even those far from pirate havens, acted as fences for stolen goods. These merchants operated under the cover of legitimate business, hiding their pirate connections to avoid legal trouble. Their willingness to buy stolen cargo allowed pirates to convert their loot into cash, supporting the continuation of piracy. Pirates were well aware of the risks involved in selling stolen goods and accepting bribes. The discount they received from buyers reflected the cost of maintaining secrecy and avoiding detection. This laundering process lowered the value of stolen goods but ensured a steady market for pirates' plunder. The need for discretion shaped much of the pirate economy's structure. The social dynamics aboard pirate ships also influenced how wealth was handled. Unlike many other maritime professions of the time, pirates practiced a form of profit sharing that was quite democratic. Loot was divided according to agreed-upon shares that reflected each crew member's rank and contribution. This system fostered loyalty and cooperation, helping pirates maintain their crews despite the dangers they faced. Pirate captains earned more than ordinary crew members, but not excessively so. Their authority was balanced by the fact that captains could be voted out if they lost the crew's support. Quartermasters, who managed daily affairs and discipline, also received extra shares. Specialists like doctors and navigators earned more than regular sailors. Recognizing their skills, this relatively egalitarian distribution contrasted sharply with the strict hierarchies and low pay common in legitimate shipping. Injury compensation was another important feature of pirate contracts. Losing a limb or an eye was a common risk during battles and storms, so pirates established a form of disability insurance. Payments for injuries were fixed in advance and clearly outlined in their articles of agreement. This system provided a degree of financial security for injured pirates, which was unusual for the time. Even with these measures, the life of a pirate was often marked by extreme highs and lows. Records show that after capturing a valuable merchant ship, crew members could receive shares equivalent to several years' wages for a naval sailor. Yet long stretches without success were common, as were losses due to weather, naval patrols, or other pirates. The unpredictability of pirate income meant that wealth was often fleeting. Selling stolen goods was one of the most challenging and essential aspects of pirate life. While piracy itself was illegal, the reality on the ground was much more complicated. Many ports and colonies, particularly in the Caribbean, had unofficial arrangements that allowed pirates to sell their plunder with relatively little interference from local authorities. This created a situation where piracy was technically outlawed, but practically accepted, and in some cases even encouraged. One of the most famous examples of this was Port Royal in Jamaica. This English colony openly welcomed pirates despite official policies condemning them. Merchants in Port Royal routinely purchased stolen goods at discounted prices, knowing that they could later resell these items through legitimate trade channels. Town officials were often complicit, accepting generous bribes to turn a blind eye to pirate activity. This combination of official tolerance and practical endorsement made Port Royal a thriving hub for pirate commerce. Visitors to these ports described open-air markets where stolen goods were sold openly and without disguise. Spanish silver coins and Dutch fabrics, both highly sought-after commodities, changed hands in broad daylight. The markets buzzed with activity, reflecting the complex relationship between pirates, merchants, and colonial officials. The reality was that the boundaries between legal and illegal commerce were often blurred. However, not all sales took place in obviously lawless ports like Port Royal. Secret buyers operated in nearly every major coastal city, from Boston in the American colonies to Lisbon in Portugal. These merchants specialized in purchasing stolen goods discreetly. They usually ran legitimate businesses and maintained a respectable public image, carefully hiding their pirate connections. For example, a shop owner in Charleston might have a back room where pirates could quietly sell their loot after dark, away from prying eyes. These secret buyers typically paid pirates only 20 to 30% of the true market value of the stolen goods. The low price reflected the risk involved in dealing with stolen merchandise and the need for secrecy. Pirates accepted these discounts as the cost of turning their loot into cash. This arrangement was a crucial part of the underground economy that allowed piracy to flourish, despite official efforts to suppress it. Corrupt officials played a vital role in this system. Harbor masters, customs agents, and even colonial governors regularly accepted bribes to allow pirate ships to dock and unload their cargo. Some went beyond merely ignoring pirate activity. They actively helped pirates by forging paperwork to make stolen goods appear legitimate. Records from the 1720s show that at least one colonial official earned more from partnerships with pirates than from his government salary, by a factor of 5. The system of bribery and corruption was widespread and deeply entrenched. This network of complicity ensured that pirates had access to ports where they could sell their goods repair their ships, and resupply. Without such support, piracy would have been far more difficult to sustain over long periods. Smuggling networks further extended the reach of pirate goods into inland markets. These networks involved multiple merchants passing goods along a chain of buyers, each taking a cut of the profits. This process effectively laundered the stolen goods, obscuring their origins. For example, a crate of spices stolen by pirates might be sold several times before finally reaching a legitimate spice shop in London. By the time it arrived, nobody remembered or cared that the goods had once been part of a pirate's plunder. Some pirates went even further, establishing false identities as legitimate traders. After years of successful piracy, they would retire quietly to a new location, using their ill-gotten wealth to set themselves up as respectable merchants. These former pirates created new names and backstories, allowing them to operate openly in normal trade without suspicion. This transition from pirate to merchant was not uncommon. In many cases, becoming a legitimate businessman was the best way for a pirate to secure a safer and more stable future after a dangerous career at sea. During times of war, the relationship between pirates and governments became even more complicated. Nations at war often found themselves desperate for supplies that their enemies had blockaded. In such situations, governments that publicly condemned piracy might secretly purchase goods from pirates. For example, during conflicts between England and Spain, English colonies frequently bought supplies from pirates even as they maintained official bounties on their heads. One colonial governor reportedly signed a pirate's death warrant and purchased stolen goods from him on the same day. This contradictory behavior highlights the pragmatic approach many colonial officials took towards piracy. While they had to uphold the law in theory, in practice, they often relied on pirates to supply goods that were otherwise unavailable. Pirates themselves sometimes kept stolen goods for their own use. Captured food, alcohol, clothing, and weapons could supply a pirate crew for months at sea. Luxury items like jewelry and fine clothing were divided among the crew as part of their share. There was little incentive to sell everything when much of the loot could improve daily life on board the ship. Many pirates became known for their flamboyant style, wearing silk shirts and gold earrings that once belonged to wealthy merchants or aristocrats. These items were symbols of status and success within pirate communities. The ability to display such wealth openly was part of what set pirates apart from ordinary sailors. Selling stolen cargo was often the most exciting moment in a pirate's life. Unlike modern employment, where salaries are predictable and benefits may include health insurance or pensions, pirates receive compensation only through their shares of loot. Pirate pay came with no safety net, except for what could be crudely described as the first prosthetic benefits package. Wooden legs, hooks, and other simple devices that replace lost limbs. Despite these risks, pirates operated under a surprisingly democratic system for dividing their stolen treasures. Before joining a crew, every pirate signed articles of agreement, binding contracts that detailed how loot would be shared. These articles were read aloud and signed by all crew members, including those who could not write and simply made their mark. Breaking the articles could result in serious punishments, ranging from reduced shares to being marooned on a deserted island with nothing but a bottle of rum. This system ensured a degree of fairness and order even in the chaotic world of piracy. The selling price of stolen goods varied depending on the type of cargo and where it was sold. Gold and silver were highly valuable because they could be melted down and were difficult to trace. A captured Spanish gold coin typically fetched close to its full market value. For example, during the golden age of piracy, one gold coin was worth about 16 Spanish dollars, enough to pay an average sailor's wages for 2 months, or common goods like rum and sugar sold at steep discounts, often 40 to 50% of their legitimate market value. Since these items were more readily available and clearly stolen, buyers demanded a risk premium. A barrel of rum worth £10 sterling, 0 pence in legal trade, might net pirates only £4 sterling, 0 pence, or £5 sterling, 0 pence on the black market. This discount was effectively the cost of laundering stolen goods into spendable cash. Stolen ships represented the biggest payday for pirates. A well-built merchant vessel could be worth £2,000 sterling, 0 pence or more, equivalent to what an average worker might earn in 20 years. However, selling a ship was complicated. Many pirates preferred to keep valuable vessels for themselves and sell the cargo separately. This strategy allowed them to maintain a fleet while still profiting from captured goods. Once stolen goods were converted to cash, the money was distributed according to the shares outlined in the ship's articles. While details varied, a typical system followed a common pattern. First, off-the-top expenses were covered, including compensation for injuries, rewards for spotting valuable prey, and bonuses for exceptional bravery in battle. The remaining money was divided among the crew based on rank and role. Captains received 5 or 6 shares, a significant premium over ordinary crew members but modest compared to the huge pay gaps common in legitimate shipping. This reflected the democratic nature of pirate ships, where leaders were elected and could be replaced if the crew was unhappy. Quartermasters, who managed discipline and food distribution and represented the crew's interest, usually received 2 shares. Specialists such as doctors, carpenters, gunners, and navigators earned 1.5 to 2 shares, recognizing their essential skills. Regular crew members received 1 share, regardless of their specific duties. Even the lowest deckhand earned more than many legitimate sailors. While a merchant sailor might make about £3 0 pence per month, a successful pirate could earn 10 times that from a single rich prize. Young boys serving as cabin boys or apprentices received half shares, less than adults, but still more than they might earn elsewhere. Injury compensation was a significant part of the pirate articles, establishing one of history's earliest disability insurance systems. Payments were fixed for the loss of limbs or eyes. For example, losing a right arm might be compensated with 600 pieces of 8 or 6 slaves, while a left arm might be worth 500 pieces of 8. This system ensured that injured pirates would not be left destitute, a practical solution given the dangers they faced. Historical records provide remarkable insights into pirate earnings. In 1695, when a crew captured a richly laden merchant vessel, each ordinary crew member received loot worth the equivalent of 3 years' wages for a naval sailor. Another capture in 1720 of an East India Company ship gave each pirate shares worth over £1,000 0 pence, a fortune compared to many legitimate sailors' lifetime earnings. Not every venture was so profitable, however. Many crews went long periods without valuable captures or lost their loot to storms, naval patrols, or rival pirates. This feast or famine cycle meant many pirates experienced both incredible wealth and desperate poverty.